My name is Madison Blake. I'm 31 years old. And 4 months ago, I gave birth to the most beautiful little boy I've ever seen. But that moment wasn't just about life, it was also about reclaiming something that had been stolen from me. You see, my sister-in-law didn't just copy my baby name, she hijacked it. First name, middle name, and last, publicly, shamelessly. And for months, she made the world believe her child was the one we'd dreamed of. My silence. It wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Because I was never going to let her win. If you've ever had someone violate your boundaries and pretend it was no big deal, or watched a manipulator turn something sacred into their personal branding tool, this story is for you. Hit that like button if you've ever had to outsmart someone who thinks you'll just sit back and take it, and subscribe. Because this is just the beginning. Now let me take you back before the reveal, before the baby, before the name, back to when I thought family meant safety. I wasn't born into wealth or chaos. I was born into what people like to call moderate Atlanta suburban stability. My parents were public school teachers. I worked my way up scholarships, internships, late-night ramen and revision cycles. I eventually landed my role as a marketing director at a mid-sized beauty brand, focusing on product messaging and consumer psychology. Irony, right? I'm good with people. I understand emotional appeal, social currency, and how to communicate with nuance. But nothing prepared me for Vanessa. Vanessa married my husband Logan's older brother, Daniel. Outwardly, she's the full package momfluencer toned arms, curated pantry, 2 dogs named after herbs. But beneath the floral midi dresses and Lightroom filters, she is one of the most calculated people I've ever encountered. She's a master of weaponized sweetness. Whenever Vanessa complimented me, I braced for the follow-up sting. You know the type. You look so good in that dress, I could never pull off something so forgiving. And Daniel, he's the classic conflict-avoidant enabler, loyal to her. Not because he agrees with her tactics, but because he fears the storm she brings if contradicted. Still, family is family, right? That's what I told myself, again and again. When I found out I was pregnant, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I wanted my child's name to be intentional, something strong but soft. A name that wouldn't blend into a spreadsheet, but wouldn't be laughed out of a playground either. Logan and I chose Jasper Elliott Blake. Jasper, because of a mountain we hiked on our 3rd anniversary. Elliott, for my grandmother, Eleanor, who died just a month before I got the positive test. We told no one, not even my mother. But somehow, Vanessa found out. We never confirmed how. But based on Vanessa's patterns and a certain look she gave me at a dinner when I accidentally left my notes app open, I knew she'd snooped. She texted me later that night. All hearts and sunshine emojis. Jasper Elliott is beautiful. Can't wait to meet him. No context. No explanation of how she knew. I showed Logan. He shrugged. She's just weirdly enthusiastic. Enthusiastic. 2 months later, she posted on Instagram, "Welcome to the world. Jasper Elliott Anderson. 7LB. 4 Oz's of pure perfection." I stared at the screen, my mouth open. I blinked once, twice. Surely this was a joke. It wasn't. That same evening, Daniel called us. "Look," he began, breathless. "Vanessa's had a really tough delivery. She's not in a place to handle drama." Drama. He said that word like I was some petty villain for reacting at all. She really connected with the name. She thinks it bonds the cousins. I nearly dropped my phone. She thinks naming our kids the exact same name is cute. He added, almost apologetically, "You and Logan have matching sounding names." She thought maybe Jasper and Jasper would be the next generation's echo of that. Logan was silent, and so was I. Because in that moment, I knew exactly who I was dealing with. I walked upstairs without a word, sat on the edge of our bed, and cried. Not because of the name, but because of what it represented. I had spent my entire life fighting to be seen, to have a voice, to create something sacred, and she took it like it was just another aesthetic on her Pinterest board. I wasn't ready to fight her directly, but I also wasn't going to roll over. This wasn't about a name anymore. This was about boundaries, and what happens when people think they can cross yours without consequence. What came next wasn't rage. It was something colder, quieter. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge doesn't come from yelling. It comes from letting them walk right into your trap, smiling. Stay tuned because in the next part, I'll show you exactly how I outplayed her at her own game. I didn't confront her. Not right away. That's not my style. And besides, Vanessa thrives on confrontation. It fuels her victim narrative. No. Instead, I did something far more dangerous in her world. I pretended not to care. For the next few weeks, I went through the motions, sent a congratulatory gift, commented a heart emoji on her announcement post, smiled when our in-laws praised how adorable it is that the cousins share a name. I let her believe I was as clueless and complicit as everyone else. But inside, something cold and precise was taking shape. I wasn't just grieving the loss of a name. I was grieving the illusion that my boundaries mattered in this family. And I was grieving the belief that people, especially women, would instinctively respect something as sacred as motherhood. Because what Vanessa did wasn't just inconsiderate. It was surgical. It was theft disguised as sentiment. It was manipulation wrapped in pastel bunting and filter presets. The worst part, everyone else played along. My in-laws acted like this was a charming coincidence. My own parents, bless them, said, "Maybe it's a good thing. Now your boys will always have each other." As if connection came from a monogram and not from authenticity. Even Logan, supportive as he was, urged caution. "Let's not burn the whole bridge over a name," he said one night. But I wasn't looking to burn the bridge. I was building an underground tunnel beneath it, one she wouldn't see coming until she fell in. Around the time Vanessa's baby was 1 month old, we began prepping for our birth. I refused to speak the name Jasper again. I hated how it tasted now, like vinegar on my tongue. Logan and I sat in our kitchen one night, a storm quietly thundering outside, and started over. I wanted something that meant resilience, something untouched, unbranded. Rowan, Logan said after flipping through a baby name book. It means strength and protection. It landed soft and sharp all at once. Miles, I added, for the quiet way my grandfather used to lead, with distance, with thought, with purpose. We smiled. Not because we'd finally picked a name, but because we'd reclaimed something from her, our autonomy. But we made one crucial decision: we weren't going to tell a soul. Only Carmen knew. Carmen was my best friend. And more importantly, she was an attorney specializing in family and intellectual property law. She'd known Vanessa was trouble long before any of this. "She didn't just steal your name," Carmen said as she scrolled through public trademark databases. "She's trying to own your identity." Carmen had receipts, proof that Vanessa had registered a mommy blog domain, @JasperElliottMommy, the very same day she gave birth. She had filed a business registration. She even set up auto-generated merch with matching cousin onesies. This wasn't about honoring family. This was about image building. She didn't want a namesake. She wanted a prop. And, for a moment, I genuinely felt sick. Because what kind of person commodifies a child before he can even crawl? Still, we waited. I gave birth to Rowan quietly, in a small, dim hospital room lit by winter sunlight. No Instagram post, no flashy baby shower. Just Logan, Carmen, and my mother, who thought we had named him Jasper. We let everyone believe what they wanted to believe. We bought a custom onesie with the wrong name. Created a faux baby registry under Jasper Blake. We knew that in the state of Georgia, changing a baby's name after 6 months becomes legally complicated and often requires court hearings, consent from both parents, and sometimes a formal notice in the paper. Vanessa wouldn't risk that kind of spotlight. We just had to survive the first half year. And as much as I hated the duplicity, there was something poetic about it, pretending to play her game while playing my own. I was no longer just a mother. I was a strategist. The tension, though, never left. Every visit to Vanessa's house was a silent war zone of curated politeness. She would hold her baby up next to mine and coo. The Jasper twins' future besties. I'd smile and nod while biting my cheek hard enough to draw blood. Daniel, her husband, never said a word. I watched him shrink more each time Vanessa posted a new photo of the babies in matching clothes, tagging Hatch, Jasper, and Jasper. Our family group chat was flooded with likes and hearts. Meanwhile, I deleted every tag, every share, and every unsolicited comment calling me the lucky aunt who gets to share a name theme. One night, I saw a sponsored post from Vanessa's page featuring both boys. She had somehow printed Jasper Elliott Blake under my baby's face. My face flushed with rage. She was publicly marketing my child under a name she hijacked, pretending the narrative was hers all along. I almost broke then. I almost called her. I almost screamed. But Logan stopped me. "You're so close," he whispered. "Don't give her a single crack to exploit." So I didn't. I kept smiling. I hosted family brunches. I laughed when people made jokes about twin birthdays. I even played along with Vanessa's delusional brand narrative because I needed her convinced. I needed her sure I'd given up. The baby's 6-month mark approached like a quiet drumbeat in the background. Carmen and I started planning. "The key is spectacle," she said one night. "You can't just correct the record. You have to make it so undeniable that any version of her story falls apart immediately." I agreed. This wasn't just about personal victory anymore. This was about public reclamation. So we plotted a reveal, subtle but loud, measured but permanent. We waited for Vanessa's biggest annual event, her spring family photo launch, every April. She organized a staged party for her blog followers, branded backdrops, fake candids, catered lemonade, all designed to launch her seasonal content calendar. She invited everyone. Of course she did. It was the perfect opportunity to unveil the Jasper and Jasper capsule line. And we brought the truth. But before I tell you what happened next, before I walk you into the exact moment the air got sucked out of that carefully curated gathering, you need to understand what silence cost me. Because pretending for 6 months nearly broke me. Every coup at the wrong name chipped away at my resolve. Every fake smile made me question my own sanity. There were nights I held Rowan while he slept and whispered apologies for the identity he wasn't allowed to own. And the guilt wasn't just toward him. It was toward myself for letting someone else define the terms of my motherhood. So when the moment came, when the truth was finally ready to walk into the room before I did, I wasn't seeking revenge. I was reclaiming truth. And the best part, she never saw it coming. The morning of Vanessa's spring event felt strange, not like war, but like theater. The sky was too clear, too still, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. I dressed Rowan in a simple white onesie. No embroidery, no flair. Carmen met us at our house early, legal folder in hand, lips painted matte red like she was going into court. "You ready?" she asked. I nodded, though my hands trembled slightly as I buckled Rowan into his carrier. This wasn't rage anymore. This was a surgical strike. I had waited for months, waited while people smiled at my pain, waited while a name meant for legacy was turned into a marketing prop. Today, we were cutting the performance. The venue Vanessa rented was as extra as I expected, florals on every post, golden balloons spelling bloom with the boys, pastel cupcakes with edible photo toppers, even a balloon arch made to look like intertwined J's. The guests, mostly mommy bloggers. Distant cousins? Instagram plus ones mingled among white garden chairs, while a photographer snapped photos of the twin strollers like they were royalty. She'd printed matching t-shirts for the boys Jasper 1 and Jasper 2. My son wore his, obediently. I let her have that final illusion. Carmen whispered, "Stage is yours when you're ready." Vanessa made her entrance 15 minutes later, resplendent in a pink floral dress, baby on one hip, selfie stick on the other. She did a slow pan with her phone camera and waved to the crowd like some benevolent queen. "I just want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate these two incredible miracle babies," she said, gesturing to both boys. Jasper and Jasper are modern twins, cousins bonded by fate, fashion, and family. Applause, giggles, hashtag murmurs. And then she turned to me, Maddie. "I'm so glad you embraced this with me," she said sweetly. "It means the world to have your support." I smiled, not warmly, just enough to make her blink. Then Carmen stepped forward and handed me a remote. One click. And the LED screen behind us, previously scrolling through old baby photos, cut to black. Then faded into white with three centered words in serif font Rowan Miles Blake. Beneath it, in smaller letters, born October 8th, always his own. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then the whispers began, like wind rustling through brittle leaves. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Carmen held up a notarized birth certificate, projected directly onto the screen. Next to it, a trademark search JasperElliottMommy.com, filed by Vanessa Anderson on date. Then, as if scripted by fate, Rowan let out a soft babble and reached for the screen his name, his truth. My breath caught in my throat. Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed. Her hands froze mid-air, like someone had hit pause on her entire body. This is a mistake," she muttered. But the air had already shifted. Daniel stepped forward, blinking rapidly. "Wait, you changed his name." I turned to him and said clearly, for everyone to hear, "No, we never named him Jasper. That was yours. Remember, all we did was let you believe we didn't mind." There was a beat of silence before the room fractured into motion. Someone whispered, "She trademarked it," another voice hissed. "She's been using a fake identity for brand deals." Carmen stepped in with controlled calm. "Vanessa has been knowingly misrepresenting a child's name and likeness in a commercial context without parental consent. We're not pressing charges yet, but her sponsors may want clarification." And with that, she handed a slim white folder to one of Vanessa's brand reps hovering by the dessert table. I wish I could say Vanessa reacted with grace. But grace was never her style. Her face crumpled, mouth twisting into something between a sob and a snarl. "You ambushed me," she snapped. "You humiliated me in front of everyone." I met her gaze. "You humiliated yourself. You just didn't expect the script to flip." She lunged forward, but Daniel stepped between us, holding her back with surprising firmness. "Enough, Van," he muttered. "Just stop." His voice cracked. It was the first time I'd ever seen him contradict her in public, and she looked at him like the air had left the room. We didn't stay long after that. I didn't need to. The performance was over. Carmen gathered our things. Rowan nestled asleep against my chest. As the garden grew louder with commentary and broken alliances, Vanessa's photographer had turned off her camera. The cupcakes sat untouched. Someone quietly removed the Jasper 1 and Jasper 2 display. And as I walked past Daniel, he reached out just briefly and said, "I'm sorry. I knew she was pushing too far, but I didn't think you'd do this." I looked at him for a long moment. I didn't want to, but she made a choice. And so did I. He nodded, defeated, honest, maybe for the first time in years. Outside, the wind had picked up. Logan took my hand, squeezing it once. Carmen exhaled sharply. The way you do after a trial. After a verdict. We got in the car. Rowan still asleep. For a while. None of us spoke. Just the quiet sound of the road and a name softly printed across his onesie Rowan. But in the rearview mirror, I could see it. Vanessa's empire, built on borrowed names and curated stories, had started to collapse, and I knew she would try to claw it back. Reframe it, spin it into victimhood. I knew the posts would come. The subtweets. The backpedaling. But I also knew she had underestimated something far more dangerous than confrontation quiet. Methodical clarity. What people like Vanessa never understand is this: some mothers scream. Others build. Slowly. Quietly. And when the walls come down, they're not loud about it. They just walk away and leave you to face the dust. She thought she had control of the narrative, but I wrote the ending months ago. And now I had one final scene left to close. Because the consequences hadn't even started yet. The days after the reveal felt eerily calm, too calm. Like the eye of a hurricane where you know the storm isn't over, only waiting for its second wave. Vanessa went silent on social media for 48 hours. For someone who'd posted daily updates about twin cousin milestones and organic diaper brands, the blackout was deafening. I kept expecting a call, a scream, a digital tantrum, but none came, until the third night. When Logan handed me his phone with a blank face and said she finally posted. It was a carefully filtered photo of her cradling her son in golden hour lighting, captioned with a lengthy paragraph about betrayal from within the family, unexpected cruelty, and navigating postpartum heartbreak. She never used my name, but she didn't have to. Her followers were already filling in the blanks. How could someone do this to a new mom? One commented. Sounds like jealousy to me, said another. And just like that, Vanessa began rebuilding her narrative not as a brand thief, but as a wounded woman blindsided by malicious relatives. Carmen sent me a screenshot with one word: predictable. The strange part was, I wasn't angry, not anymore. I was detached. Watching her spin the truth into cotton candy for digital sympathy no longer pierced me the way it would have months ago. Maybe because the truth was out now. Maybe because the people who mattered knew it. Or maybe because something inside me had shifted so fundamentally that her voice no longer carried the same weight. Still, I couldn't help noticing the sponsors began dropping. Quietly at first, one clothing line paused collaboration plans. Another pulled her image from their site. Carmen was right, brands don't sue influencers. They ghost them. Vanessa didn't implode, not in the dramatic online meltdown way. She frayed slowly. Her content became more scattered, captions less polished, videos missing their usual glow. The once pristine aesthetic was now slightly off. And eventually, inevitably, the silence broke within the family. Daniel called Logan a week after the reveal. I wasn't on the line, but I heard enough through the walls to understand the conversation wasn't going well. She says she wants to apologize. Logan told me afterward. I raised an eyebrow. To me, he sighed. Kind of. More like she wants to clear the air. That was Vanessa speak for damage control, and I wasn't interested. Still, we agreed to meet on neutral ground, with both Carmen and Daniel present, not at their house, not at ours, but at a quiet corner table in a local cafe where the hum of coffee machines would drown out anything too dramatic. Vanessa looked tired when she arrived. Not glamorously tired, but raw. Her eyes were puffy, and her voice cracked as she opened with, I didn't think you'd go that far. I held my mug, watching her. I didn't think you'd take what wasn't yours. She bit her lip, tried again. I thought it was a beautiful way to connect our kids. You trademarked his name, I said quietly. You printed merchandise. You staged photo ops with my son in the background and branded him without consent. That's not connection. That's control. Daniel cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. Carmen remained silent, arms crossed, eyes unblinking. Vanessa's gaze dropped. I just wanted something perfect, she whispered. After everything. After the miscarriage, the IVF, the years of feeling like the failure of the family, I wanted to be the one who brought something good. That cracked something in me, not sympathy. Exactly. But recognition. I understood the ache of invisibility. I understood what it was like to claw at meaning in a world that refuses to validate your pain unless you broadcast it. But empathy doesn't erase consequence. I'm sorry that you were hurting, I said, voice steady. But hurting people doesn't make you whole. And using my child to fill your void, that crossed a line. She nodded slowly. I know. There was a pause. A real one. And for a brief second, I saw her, not the persona, not the influencer, but the woman beneath the performance. We didn't hug, we didn't cry, we parted with polite distance and unspoken rules. She would rebuild. But not on our backs. And we had other plans. I had been quiet long enough. It started as a journal entry, a raw, unfiltered memory dump of everything that had happened. But the words kept coming. And eventually, they turned into a script. Carmen read it and said, "This isn't a blog post. This is a message." And she was right. So we launched a podcast, Mother Boundaries, a space for women to talk about invisible lines, emotional labor, generational trauma, and the constant pressure to play nice in the face of violation. I recorded the first episode at 2 a.m., with Rowan sleeping on my chest, my voice low but sharp as I told the world what happens when you stop asking for respect and start demanding it. The downloads surged. Stories poured in, mothers, daughters, sisters, all writing about stolen moments, forced silence, and the reclamation of self. Vanessa never acknowledged the podcast publicly, but she heard it. I know she did. She unfollowed me 2 episodes in. That told me everything I needed. Logan became my biggest cheerleader. He built our makeshift home studio. He brewed coffee at midnight during editing marathons. He learned audio mixing just to clean up my voice without making it sound unnatural. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt since before the name war began, free. And not just free from Vanessa, but free from the need to be understood by everyone. Free from the illusion that silence is safer than confrontation. One night, while recording episode 10, I looked at Carmen between takes and said, I thought revenge would feel louder. She smiled. That's because you didn't take revenge. You took your voice back, and she was right. I didn't destroy Vanessa. I didn't want to. I just refused to let her hold the pen to my motherhood story. But stories have ripple effects. And one was still coming. A final message I hadn't expected. A letter, handwritten, folded neatly in a pale envelope with no return address. Inside was a photo of Vanessa's son alone this time. No props, no hashtags, and a single sentence: I'm giving him a new name. Below it, in small script, she had written, "Thank you for waking me up." I stared at it for a long time. Then placed it in a drawer. Not as a keepsake. Not as proof of victory. But as a reminder that sometimes the line between villain and victim is razor thin, and that the real triumph isn't the moment you're proven right. It's when you no longer need to be. Some people think revenge is a slam of doors, a sharp scream, or a dramatic public collapse. But the truth is, most revenge doesn't sound like anything. It's quiet. It's a subtle reclaiming of power, an internal shift that rewrites who holds the pen in your story. And for me, the most radical act of all was refusing to let my silence become my legacy. Months passed. Seasons shifted. Rowan began crawling. then standing, wobbling on legs that looked too small to hold his name but somehow carried it with effortless certainty. Every time I whispered his name, Rowan, I felt it settle into the air like something sacred, something earned. It was no longer a wound. It was a truth. And in that truth, I began to see everything else differently, not just Vanessa or Daniel, not even Logan, but myself. Because silence didn't begin with her. It began with me. I had spent so many years being the peacekeeper, the reasonable one, the woman who swallowed discomfort for the sake of not making things harder. I'd smoothed over arguments, sidestepped confrontation, and told myself that maturity meant letting things go. But there is a cost to constantly letting things go. And I didn't fully understand that until someone crossed a line so deeply into my soul that letting it go would have meant losing myself entirely. You don't notice it at first how the world teaches women to be digestible, to say things gently, to phrase hurt as concern, to ask, not assert. But you feel it when you try to push back. You feel it in the way people flinch when you raise your voice, in the way they call you dramatic for reacting to theft of something intimate, in the way your boundaries are treated as suggestions instead of structures. And I think that's why Vanessa's betrayal cut so deep. Not just because she stole a name, but because she made me realize how invisible I'd become to the people closest to me. Carmen once told me that most women don't snap out of nowhere. They unravel slowly, thread by thread, until one day they finally say enough. And when they do, it's not rage that speaks, it's clarity. And once clarity speaks, there's no going back to pretending. I stopped pretending after Rowan's name was spoken on that LED screen. I stopped playing along. I started telling my truth not for revenge, but for release. And in doing so, I discovered a new kind of power, the kind that doesn't scream for approval but quietly stops apologizing. The podcast grew, not explosively, not overnight, but steadily like roots digging deeper rather than spreading wider. Women messaged me with stories that made my knees weak, sisters erased from inheritance, mothers pushed aside by in-laws, daughters forced to apologize for crying too loudly. There was a common thread in all of them, a moment where silence became unbearable. I didn't have answers for everyone, but I had language. And sometimes, language is the first form of liberation. Vanessa and I never fully reconciled. She sends the occasional polite message in the family group chat. She comments a heart emoji when someone shares a photo of Rowan. But she never brings up the name, never mentions the past. I don't need her to. Because forgiveness, at least for me, isn't about restoring what was. It's about releasing what no longer fits and holding on to resentment, while seductive, would only chain me to a version of myself I've already outgrown. Logan and I talk about it sometimes, what might have happened if we hadn't pushed back, if we'd gone along with it, named our child something hollow to avoid confrontation. And he always says the same thing: I wouldn't have respected us. And he's right. Because when you choose peace over self-respect too many times, it stops being peace. It becomes quiet resignation. And that's no way to parent, no way to partner, no way to live. I started teaching Rowan simple phrases as he learned to speak thank you, please, no, thank you, and most importantly, that's mine. I say that one loudest, because one day, someone will try to take something from him, a toy, a friend, a dream, maybe even a name. And I want him to know, in his bones, that he doesn't have to give it away just to keep the room comfortable. People ask me now, was it worth it? All the planning, the months of pretending, the stress, and I tell them the truth. It wasn't easy. It was exhausting. It was lonely. But it was necessary. Because some lines can't be redrawn. Some things, once taken, reshape the entire landscape of who you are. And reclaiming them isn't just about getting even, it's about getting whole. In the end, this wasn't about Vanessa. Not really. It was about me finally hearing my own voice above the noise of what I was supposed to be. It was about choosing integrity over politeness, clarity over comfort, truth over illusion. And I'd do it all again if it meant holding my son in my arms, looking into his eyes, and knowing I didn't just name him, I protected him. The name Rowan means strength and protection. Miles means calm warrior. Every time I say it, I remember who I became to earn it, and who I'll keep becoming to honor it. And maybe that's the final twist in this story. That sometimes the loudest justice is delivered not in shouting, but in stillness, in showing up fully as yourself, in building a legacy not from the ashes of someone else's story, but from the flame of your own voice. Finally, lit.